Good morning, traders. Today is Tuesday, October 25th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, well, let's dive right into it. What did we see yesterday in the market? Well, on Friday, we ended the day with a spike up, which was a signal of momentum to the upside. The overnight over the weekend basically just balanced, but it did so to higher prices, right? It balanced in the upper end of Friday's range, but it also explored higher prices. So that was also kind of a sign we still had momentum yesterday. Then the market yesterday opened, we pulled down, we tested the base of the spike. So the spike was the signal that we had excess in the market. We tested the base of that spike yesterday, came back up, spent most of the day rotating around, and then at the very end of the day, broke higher to test that overnight high. Okay, so that was a sign that we still had momentum in the market towards the end of the day. But here's where things start to get interesting. We did not have a spike at the end of the day yesterday. We started to, and then we pulled back in, which makes that just short covering and not a spike. So, okay. I hear you, Charles. You're saying the momentum is starting to run out. We don't still have a spike like we had on Friday. What else you got for me? Well, then I look at the overnight and I see that once again, just like last night, it basically did the same thing. It rotated around towards the upper end of the previous day's range. So once again, that's bullish. Okay, great. But here's where it gets interesting. What we have here from the overnight high down is a phenomenon that we call the 45-degree angle. Whenever you get this in a market, it tends to be a signal that there is very, very strong resistance that has built up in the overnight there. So it just means the market is likely to have to really grind to get its way through there if it wants to come up here and test the overnight high today. So that is another sign. Just like the failure to have a spike at the end of the day yesterday, the 45-degree angle in the overnight tonight is just another signal that the market is starting to run out of momentum to the upside. So still bullish that it rotated in the upper end of the range, but starting to run out of momentum. So that's important to note right there. And then where it gets a little bit more tricky is then we pop over and we take a look at the Q. And the NQ is fixing to open actually slightly above yesterday's range, which would actually be a gap up. A gap up would be a sign of momentum, right? Also, interestingly enough, the Q basically almost had a spike. If they'd have literally closed just a few points higher, they would have had a spike, which would have been a signal there is still momentum. And then the NQ has its 45-degree angle from the lows on the overnight, which increases the odds that that will be support for the market. So you got the tale of two markets here. Both are telling you with the rotation on the upper end of the previous day's range that there are still buyers in this market. But the ES is saying we are running out of steam, while the NQ is saying we still have some. So the main focus for this morning is going to be, can we get on the NQ? Can we stay above yesterday's high? All right, so now, we're going to open on the high. Can we get above and stay above yesterday's high? And for the ES, it'll be, can we test the overnight high? On the ES, if we're able to test that overnight high, we will look to see, do new buyers step in up here? If so, we're looking to test yesterday's high and then monitor for continuation higher from there. Or do we run out of steam and start to pull back down? And then same exact thing for yesterday's high on the NQ. If we push above, we come back down, we start to find support at yesterday's high, we look for continuation to the upside. Okay, and then to the downside on the Q, we're looking for support inside this overnight range right here, inside this 45-degree angle. So basically support above like 11,430. If that breaks, then we're looking for further downside continuation. And there's some weakness that needs to be repaired in here. But as long as those lows can hold, we'll look for continuation higher. And then on the ES, same exact thing. We got these weak references that we left behind right here by the overnight low. So we want to see in the bearish case, Do we push down and test that overnight low? If so, do we get new sellers looking to take the market lower, or do we just poke below and come back up? So the main focus for the ES is the overnight high and low. For the NQ, it's the overnight low and yesterday's high. And the markets are open. So bullish, but potentially running out of momentum here. Got 140 people hanging out. Let's smash that like button. Pump the smash. Smash the like. Pump it up. I also just wanted to very quickly zoom out to the daily and just point out, I was talking about this yesterday, but there is potential. This is basically a larger balancing area for the market here that we've been bouncing around in the last month or so. And we could be potentially breaking out above that today. If we start to break yesterday's high and find support there, find new buyers there, that is potentially a breakout from this larger balance area. And you know what they say about balance? Balance leads to excess. So I just wanted to point that out so we're all aware of it. We could fail as well, right? We could fail and pull back down, but finding support up here could lead to some excess to the upside. All right, so there's the test of the overnight high for the ES. So now the question is, do we get new buyers up here? Or do we just poke above and then fail and pull back down? So we're looking to hold support above the halfback at 38.13. Also, it's worth noting when we're looking at the ticks here, just because it doesn't happen that often, the overnight inventory was perfectly balanced. They pretty much closed exactly where they opened. So wherever the ticks start moving right out of the open today is a sign of what's happening. So if we start to build momentum in the ticks right out the gate, that is bullish. We are at 90 likes. 90 people are liking the stream. Hey, we made it to 100 likes. All right. Well, you probably guessed it. I'm feeling bullish. At this point, if I'm giving the market a lot of breathing room, I'm just looking to stay above the opening price, 38.09. But if I want to really, have the market take off from here, I want to find support at the overnight high at 38.18. That would be sort of the strongest, most bullish scenario. As we now hold this overnight, which was this 45-degree angle of resistance, if we now turn this into support, that would be the most bullish for continuation. But I would be bullish anywhere above the open. As they say, when it comes to momentum, it can shock you how far they can push it. And right now they have that momentum. Bolshevik. All right, so here's where we need those buyers to step in. Got to keep these ticks above the zero line and hold this market up here. Turn this resistance into support if they're going to keep the momentum going. Looks like we got some icebergs trying to turn this support into resistance at the overnight high. All right, here we go. Let's test these icebergs, see how much volume they got behind them. All right, so halfback breaking is a little bit less bullish, but I remain bullish as long as this 45-degree angle, like I talked about from the overnight, can hold. I'll stay bullish. They didn't quite have the buyers yet, but they haven't run out of momentum. They've still got a chance. And we know the market wants to do business. Once again at that overnight high. They're waiting. Okay, well, nothing on the first one and nothing on the second one. All right, so the overnight high is holding as support, which is bullish. Now we're heading back up to see if we can do the same thing with yesterday's high. Can we push above yesterday's high at 22, come back down and turn it into support? If so, we can look for continuation higher from there. Let's pop over and take a quick look at the Q. Okay, so the NQ. So the NQ is bullish, but this low is weak. This is a very, very weak low. They opened literally on yesterday's high to the penny. And they did not get to trade down into yesterday's range at all. So you have the momentum, which is great. But that's pretty weak, that low right there. So they may need to pull back down and test this support real quick before they're ready for continuation. So be paying close attention to this area that you're in right now. Does it start to become resistance? Do the sellers start to step in here? Do those ticks start to fall below the zero line? If so, they may need to go repair that weak low. Okay, so once again, looking for support here. Same place as before. Overnight high. On the ES. Hot Carl, icebergs. Yeah, you know, icebergs. Icebergs. Bergs. Yeah, it's see these little green things down here? These little green lines? That's the software showing us where there are what are called iceberg orders. So it basically just means they're only showing us 10 orders above the surface, but they have much bigger size below the surface of the water that we just can't see. And what will happen is as soon as the market comes down there and touches it, it'll pull in more size. And then it'll come down again, it'll pull in more size and over until it's completely filled. And that's, you know, filling the iceberg order. So we had a couple of those above us, and we took them out very easily with some stops. And now we can continue higher. Speaking of stops, there's another stop run right there above yesterday's high. It's a bullish. I assume since this is happening exactly at 9:45, some news must have just been released. Some financial figures must have just hit the wire. So we've got a low volume node right about at yesterday's high. We're looking for the market to come back, backfill that, and then create support here at about 38.22, which was yesterday's high. We're looking for resistance up here at 38.3250. That was the base of a spike down that often acts as resistance when the market is on its way back up. So it would make sense to just test that and then come back down looking for support. All right, so we're looking for some resistance in here. Very little resistance. We seem to have more short covering and FOMO buying ahead. The momentum continues. They just keep on buying. Yeah. And short covering. At this point, I think we've probably created enough volatility here to step back and take a look at that daily once again. And now say to ourselves, we are breaking out of a previous balance area. If we can hold yesterday's high for the rest of the day today, this could be the first day of a new, well, not new trend because we're now in day 3 of a trend, but a bigger move out of this balance here. So the bulls have just taken control of the market. Can they hold it into the close? Can they keep us above yesterday's high? It's also worth mentioning the market also often likes to move from one major node to the next. So the fact that we have now broken away from this major node of volume that was at about the 3770s increases the odds that we're heading towards the next major node above, which is up at the 3860s. And we have very little resistance between here and there above us. Chillin' with Dylan asks, what level do you use as the spike base? I've been using the opening of the L or M, whichever extended the range. That is correct. L or M that extends the range. So for yesterday, that would have been on the ES right here at like 38.18. But of course, the second part of that is they have to close inside the spike. So the fact that they pulled back down means it wasn't a spike. But if we jump over and look at the NQ, see, they were just a point off from it being a spike. If they were right here, it would have been a spike, and that would have been the base. So I would call that close enough. They gave us a signal they still had momentum. We also had a gap up, right? Or no, we opened right on the previous day's high. Ape love ape. BTC's pumping? Pump it. Oh my god, it's at 19.4? Oh boy. Yeah, that's still balancing. Hasn't made a decision. Indecision on the corn. More short covering. RK says, need a do-over today? Yeah, I feel like it's going to be one of those days, which has become the new norm, where we're going to get a massive move here in the first hour and then spend the rest of the day rotating around inside of it. If you didn't catch it, you may have missed it. So we're testing some resistance here. It's not that strong. We should be able to head up and test that next major node at 38.55. That was also a previous balance area low, so we would expect some sellers to be waiting up there. Chilling with Dylan. Can we get the corn on the book map? It's a great idea. I have a feeling. I wonder how you'd have to do it. I guess the futures, right? Actually, I saw there was a connection for like Coinbase. Yeah, maybe I can connect Coinbase. I'll play with it later. Scooball, you would get BTC from only one stock? Yeah, I mean, Coinbase is like a big enough exchange with enough arbitrage to other exchanges that you could trust their price as being fair price. There's a lot of arbitrage bots in crypto. Scuba, Polish stock is crazy enough for me. What is it, like a penny stock market? Is it just really volatile? Why don't you try to become like Poland's #1 trader? Like the master of the Polish market. Scuba. John Lash says, news about to hit. If we're going to get a big murder bot, the first signal is we'll get the volume in here will go quiet. And it did just kind of start to fade off a little bit. So maybe. The darker this becomes, the more you know they're preparing for some big move. Do you guys see how that's happening? It's so funny. It's just getting faded and faded more and more. The closer, the closer and closer we get to 10 a.m., they're turning off all the bots and waiting to see what happens. Here we go. Consumer confidence. Let me guess. Everyone's feeling super confident. I don't even know what these numbers mean. Forecast 105, actual 102. Oh no. So now we can see, now that the event is over, those regular day trading bots starting to build their volume, the ones that kind of bracket the market on either side. And we're heading back to business as usual. Right back to the momentum. Turned off the market, got the news, had a bit of volatility, and back to business as usual. All right, so I would say at this point, the feeling I'm starting to get is I suspect the market is going to run out of steam up here at 56. I think that's about as big a move it's going to make from this large volume node all the way up to this one. And so, you know, it's probably too late to be going long into this market. But if they can hold the support here, I would look for that move. But if they start to pull back, we may be looking at just going sideways now the rest of the day above the overnight high. So it may not be as bullish as it seems if they can't hold this literally right now where we're at for support. We may have just run out of steam. So let's wait and see how this plays out. I will say the high is weak, as it's all sellers. Fletch says he's really enjoying the e-course. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Worked hard on it. All right, so we can tell the market's starting to run out of that bullish momentum up here. The bulls are trying to defend, But now I'm starting to take note of the fact that we did leave behind some very thin volume in here that would love to get back filled, looking for support around yesterday's high. So if these ticks break the zero line, that is where I suspect we're going. Design knob. I'm trying to listen to the Black Swan, Charles, but darn, it's hard to get through his pretentiousness. See, I like it. I find it funny. What I find particularly funny is the way he judges other people and, like, is himself acting against what he's judging them for in the judging. The very definition of the kettle calling the pot black. But whatever, it's funny. Speaking of which, two days, guys. Book club is tomorrow night. If you have not finished The Black Swan, you best get to reading. You've got quite an undertaking ahead of you. Exactly. The size of the brains of bank executives. That's the stuff I love. So NQ ironically opened up this morning more bullish than the ES, is now less so. They have not actually gotten the initial balance to the upside yet, but leaving that poor high behind means they're probably going to try to get back up there above the current high. And if they do so, they're going to work their way through this giant node of resistance. So this is the equivalent of the one on the ES that we got through, and it triggered us towards the opposite end. The equivalent on the ES, we're like right here right now. The same thing could happen right here with the Q. If we can get above that A period high and come back down and find support, that could be the slingshot to the next major node. But they're not quite there yet. They're still fighting their way through this resistance. So I would say the NQ is actually a step behind the ES, but remains bullish. All right, so if the ticks break the zero line again, as they're doing right now, I'm going to switch the banner back to neutral. Not because I'm bearish in any way, shape, or form, but just because I think we need to pull back to yesterday's high, looking for some support. And so I'll wait until I see that support there before I get bullish again. Why, Charles? Normally you would be guns blazing bullish right now. Normally I would, but this market has taught me a lesson recently, which is that what it likes to do these days is make a giant move in the first hour of the day and then go nowhere for a while and just chop the market up. And the way we made that high, we could potentially be set up for some chop sideways here. So to get me bullish, I'm going to need to see some confirmed support. Although it looks like I was a bit early now that they bought those ticks again. So anyway, I'm back to neutral here, but I would say very bullish neutral. I still think the market has momentum. Just not sure we found the support. So now the question is, does this level that was support around 38.41, does that become resistance? Do the ticks get smacked back down below the zero line once again when we get up there? All right, testing that potential resistance here. All right, looks like I was wrong. Sorry, guys. I was early on that break of the momentum. It's still bullish. They got right through that resistance. Screwball, note of volume as magnet, not support resistance. No, I think it's support resistance. To me, it's all about the momentum right now. It's like you could think about it like a gap and go, like the beginning of a trend. They're either running out of steam right now to go sideways the rest of the day, in which case we're pulling back down to test yesterday's high, or they've still got the momentum, in which case they'll break the B period high and keep going. And I think that this is just that tug of war. Also known as support resistance. Gunk, Charles, you don't see the possibility of a reversal here? Yeah, I literally just said that 2 minutes ago. I'm saying I think if it can't keep going, if we cannot break out of this higher, we're almost definitely going to come back to test yesterday's high. What happens from there, I got to wait and see. There could be buyers, there might not. But right now, they still have the momentum. So I'm going to give them a chance to see if they can keep it going. Well, that's what I mean. Going sideways would be a pullback. It would be the market pulling back to here and then just going like this the rest of the day. Until some random time, 1:27 p.m. when it breaks one way or the other. At whatever moment, the maximum number of traders get bored with the market and stop paying attention. And then it randomly breaks 30 points one direction. Christopher, do you think we have different levels as we move up? Yes. If the market continues to trend higher, if we print the C period and we break the B period high and we keep going, yeah, absolutely. We'll keep pushing higher all day long. We'll pull the Ferris price higher. We'll pull volume higher. We'll pull the value area higher. But we're not going to be able to do it if we can't hold the momentum. Step 1. Keep those ticks above that zero line. All right, so it feels like the buyers are going for that poke higher. Remember, once the NQ repairs its poor high, it's through this resistance. It could get some momentum. We could get some short covering and a bit of a pop here once we get through this. And I reckon it'll take the ES with it. All right, so as we're printing the C period here, we created a poor high with the C period high being one tick off from the B period high. So that increases the odds that the market is going to get a push away where it pulls back down looking for support. We'll look for that support right in the same area we just built it up literally like 5 minutes ago, around 38.41, to come back and repair that poor high. And then that will be the beginning of one time framing higher, which would be bullish. So it still feels like the market is running out of steam here, but they have it. They still have the momentum. So they can keep pushing it until they run out. NQ still has a poor high in need of repair as well. So zooming out, bigger picture for today, what would I leave you with? I would say, to me, there's here's two or three scenarios. One is the market pushes higher into this node right here around 38.60, runs out of steam, comes back down, just goes sideways the rest of the day. That's, in my mind, the most likely scenario. The next scenario would be we push above that node, we come back down, we find support, and somehow we just keep this firecracker effect going, and we push up to the next node. That, to me, is the second most likely scenario. And then the third most likely scenario would be we push back down looking for support. Let me just clear these out. We push back down looking for support on yesterday's high, and we fail to find the support there. And then we continue to sell off lower, test the lows, go repair the weakness from yesterday, go repair the weakness, so on and so forth, right? That, to me, is the least likely scenario to take place today. I'm pretty sure we're going to find support, somewhere around yesterday's high, overnight high, whenever we run out of momentum, and then just go sideways. To me, this is a pretty, as I pointed out earlier on the daily, this is a pretty important moment for the market, bigger picture, to sort of successfully break out of this area here. So really all that matters from this point on is that they just stay above yesterday's high. So with that, I will bid you farewell and wish you the best of luck. Members of the brigade, anchors away.